We will call this hearing of the Assembly Transportation Committee to order. Madam Secretary, will you please establish a quorum?
Frazier.
Aye. Here.
Linder.
Here.
Baker. Here. Bloom. Brown.
Here.
Chu. Daly.
Here.
Dodd. Eduardo Garcia. Gomez. Kim.
Who's up first?
Mathis. Medina. Melendez. Nazarian. O'Donnell. We have a quorum.
So we have a quorum. We're going to go ahead and go on to announcements and measures on consent. File item number 1, ACR 174. File item number 2, ACR 177. File item number 4, SB 773 with amendments. File item number 5, SB 940. File item number 7, SB 1399. File item number 8, SCR 102. File item number 9, SCR 111. So would any member like to remove an item from the consent calendar? I have a first from Ms. Brown and a second from Mr. Daly on the consent calendar. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll for the consent calendar?
Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Linder.
Aye.
Linder, aye. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Bloom. Brown.
Aye.
Brown, aye. Chu. Daly.
Aye.
Daly, aye. Dodd. Eduardo Garcia. Gomez. Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Mathis. Medina. Medina, aye. Melendez. Melendez, aye. Nazarian. O'Donnell. O'Donnell, aye.
The consent calendar has 9 votes. We'll leave it open for absent members. The sergeants call the authors, please. We're ready to go. Mr. Mendoza, you might as well come on up. Good afternoon, Senator. Senate Bill 1072. Are you ready to proceed? Please do.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm here to present SB 1072, which protects children traveling to and from school by establishing safe pupil transportation procedures to help prevent children from being left alone on school buses. It is in a disturbing number of cases, children, many of them with special needs, who are nonverbal or have fallen asleep, have been mistakenly left on parked buses unattended and found hours later. Tragically, in my district last year, Paul Lee, a special needs student, passed away last September after being left inside of a school bus on a hot day in the city of Whittier. To prevent future tragedies, SB 1072 specifically requires that all public and private school buses be equipped with a child safety alert system designed to require the driver to walk to the back of the bus to ensure that the bus is empty and to deactivate it manually. Also, SB 1072 directs school districts to establish a safety procedure for bus drivers to follow to ensure that bus drivers check the bus at the end of their route. Also require the bus drivers to review this safety protocol on their annual renewal training. In addition, it also adds a reporting requirement to the DMV for the DMV to be notified when a child has been left unattended so that appropriate action can be taken. This bill has received bipartisan support in the Senate, and I would respectfully ask for your aye vote. I have witnesses here to want to speak in support.
Thank you, Senator. Would you please state your name and who you're representing for the record, please? Any of your witnesses can start to proceed now.
I didn't want to stop the meeting. I thought they were going to proceed.
Okay. So please introduce yourself and
We'll start
who you
with,
represent. Okay. Thank you. Please proceed, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Eunha Lee, and I am the mother of Hyunjun Paul Lee. Paul was killed last year when he was left behind on a school bus during one of the hottest days of the year. I cannot begin to describe how deep my pain is of losing my only son. Paul was my life. He was filled with much love and joy, and even though raising a special needs son in this world was not easy, but there was always laughter and happiness every time he was around. Paul loved school, his teachers, and his classmates, and he was always excited to begin his day. But due to the carelessness of others, Paul did not arrive at school as he should have. Instead, he was left to die inside a school bus that sat in a school bus parking lot for many hours in temperatures that reached well over 100 degrees. Nobody looked for Paul when he didn't get off the bus when it arrived at his school. Nobody reported Paul missing as he sat for many hours aboard that hot school bus, waiting for someone to get him. Nobody looked for Paul until it was too late. My precious son died on September 11, 2015, aboard that school bus left behind by a school bus driver that had confirmed the bus was all clear. Many children, especially those in special education, remain vulnerable to this type of life-threatening situation while traveling aboard the school bus. Without adherence and a reinforcement of school bus safety policy and procedures, our children are at risk of being left behind, and this senseless tragedy will happen again. Our family remains vigilant that Paul's death will not be in vain or without change. And we are here today to support the Senate Bill 1072, the Paul Lee School Bus Safety Law, named after our beloved son. When I remember back to that September morning, Paul looked happy with the new t-shirts that I had bought for him for his birthday. As he got ready for school, I hugged and kissed him and said, "Have a blessed day, Paul, I love you." With his big smile, Paul got on the bus and we waved goodbye to each other as we did every school day. No one expected it, but that moment became the last time I would see my loving son alive. I would like to thank Senator Tony Mendoza for authoring Senate Bill 1072 because it will put safety protocols in place aboard the school buses to protect the children from being left behind. We believe that our school buses in California should be equipped with the child safety alarm system that can only be deactivated when the bus driver walks to the back of the bus, forcing the driver to check to make sure the bus is empty. Knowing that this bill has been written in his name will put a smile on Paul's face in heaven. Our family cannot escape from drowning in sorrow from Paul's death, and my heart hurts every day when I see the many unprotected children aboard the school buses on the road. Looking at those school buses is like looking at my son's coffin. No family should have to say goodbye to a child who died while riding in a school bus. I ask for everyone's support, interest, and concern as we raise our voice in Paul's name to make sure that this senseless tragedy will never happen again to another child or family. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next witness, please. Please state your name and who you represent.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. April Lopez. I'm the chair of the California State Council on Developmental Disabilities. More importantly, I'm the mother of 3, one of which is a 13-year-old girl with a dual diagnosis, Down syndrome and autism. The State Council is a proud sponsor of SB 1072, and the State Council, the community, and my family thanks Senator Mendoza for his leadership on this vital issue. We are equally honored to show our solidarity with the Lee family, as you have heard the heart-wrenching story of what happened to their only son. When we first learned about the tragic cause of Paul Lee, we wondered how anything like this could possibly occur. We discussed the incident at length at the State Council and the Legislative and Public Policy Committee. Our thought was, why do we need a bill? Just to make sure kids are not left on the buses. Why was Paul Lee, a loving son who was a nonverbal autistic boy, left on the bus? So tragic, unimaginable. However, much to our dismay, when we began to do some research, we soon realized just how widespread this problem was and is. all over America, children with special needs have been inadvertently left on school buses. We have heard stories from Georgia, Florida, Washington, New York, and many other states as well. Some news makes it to the paper, and some news doesn't. Unfortunately, it's not shocking anymore. I'm married to a 30-year veteran of the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Tom Dominguez, and in 30 years, he has worked many investigations, homicides, and crimes. And unfortunately, I'm privy to many of these incidents that are near-death experiences. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated case. We at home, we live our lives with these experiences in the 30 years. I haven't been married to him for 30 years, thank goodness. But I've been with Tom for about 20 years, and our Isabella has ridden the bus for about 9 years. And twice a year, the classes change. So I know that every year I'm going to take at least a couple of days. I've said this before. I follow the bus to school, and I follow it home. And it's not a joke anymore, but at the same time, we have communication at home. Yep, they forgot our daughter at school today. So I follow the bus, and I'll get off, and I'll say to the bus, I'll call transportation and say, hey, you forgot about my daughter. And they'll apologize to me, and I'll say, no worries, I'm here, I got her, I'm taking her home, and I'll do it again the next day. I do this not only because I know they're going to be forgotten and because the schools get quite busy, and it happens, but you're talking about children that are nonverbal. Our daughter has only become more verbal in the last couple of years, but I can still tell you there are a lot of communication issues there that I don't even know how her day went without having a communication log. There's a new bus driver every morning and every afternoon. So we don't have the same bus driver, and then if there's vacations or any other unexpectedly things that come up, we have someone new. So I say this because we take for granted, and I have two other children. I have a 10-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, one of who came and testified in the Senate about this bill, because we live our lives around the school bus. When it shows up in the morning, when it leaves, we're hoping to make good connection with that school bus driver, because we are leaving our children in the hands of a school bus driver and praying that they will remember them, remember their name, remember that they're in their bus, that they might fall asleep or fall down and not be seen. We're aware of lots of cases throughout, even here recently in Golden State, children with special needs cannot communicate who have fallen asleep, as I've mentioned. Something that I've heard recently, that some of the charter buses had wanted to be exempt from this bill. I don't really know all the details of it, but I want to remind everyone of something pretty significant, and those who don't know about children with special needs. I'll give you an example. In the area that I live, there are 3, and I live in the Placentia Yorba Linda area that's North Orange County. There are 3,000 kiddos that have IEPs, which means that they have the ability to ride buses. So with that being said, according to the 501, those who are not familiar with that, means that all kids with special needs have the right to be fully included in school. That means fully included in field trips, after school activities, any single thing that any kiddo, typical kid, has the ability to participate in, whether it's paid for by the school or not. Special needs kids with IEPs have the right to participate. With that being said, that means they're going to be on these buses. So I'll just give you one last example. About 6 months ago, Placentia Linda School District, which many school districts don't have enough buses to transport their kiddos after school for games and field trips, they're chartering 2 charter company buses. And they just, at a school board meeting, allowed, they have to, what you guys do, allow this acceptance of this particular school bus charter company to drive kiddos around. So with that being said, all the kids in California are using and riding school charter bus companies to go on field trips and go to after-school activities, games, and whatnot. My daughter's fully included, and she's an athlete. She's not very verbal. She happened to just win the silver in the Special Olympics over this weekend in gymnastics. Not completely verbal, but very athletic and tries her best. I am hoping that that school bus is going to be prepared when she is traveling on alone, because a lot of parents don't have the means to follow a school bus and take off from work. They're praying that their kid is going to get there and get back at the end of the day. So in closing, I just want to say that California prides itself on being a national leader in forward-thinking legislation. SB 1072 certainly fits it into this category. I urge the members and the Assembly Transportation Committee to vote aye on SB 1072. Let's be unanimous. It was unanimous in the Senate. And I'll leave you with what my daughter said when she testified in the Assembly, in the Senate. She said, "My mommy, my daddy, my brother, my sister, and I, we pray every night for health and family. And tonight I pray that you will hear my prayers and vote yes on 1072, so that no other family will endure the pain that the Lee family has had to endure with the loss of their only son." And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support of the bill? So we have some members of the public who wish to testimony in support of the bill. Please state your name, who you represent, and since we've got a little bit of time, I'll give you a little bit of latitude on stating your case, okay?
Greg DeGere with the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration, which is a coalition of people with intellectual disabilities and all developmental disabilities and their families, friends, and service providers. We support the bill and thank Senator Mendoza for his leadership.
Thank you for that. State your name and who you represent, please.
Enrique Roach on behalf of Los Angeles Unified School District, and we're in support.
Lydia Bourne representing American Academy of Pediatrics and the California School Nurses. We are in support.
Thank you.
Melissa Cortez Roth on behalf of Autism Speaks and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders in support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Tristan Brown with the California School Employees Association. We're technically still at a neutral position, but very rapidly moving towards a support. We'd like to thank the author and his office for working so diligently with us to get there. We'd also just like to say and echo the comments that no matter what type of vehicle a pupil is on, they deserve the same standard of care, and we hope that all types of the transportations listed in the bill currently are still in the bill after it moves out of this committee, so that no matter what type of bus and who operates it, that child's protected. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name and who you represent, please.
Kimberly Rosenberger with Service Employees International Union. I'm echoing what Tristan Brown's saying and also want to reiterate what the sponsor said. When buses are out of routine or they're not sticking to the usual route, it increases the risk, and that's why we think that all buses should be included in this and it should be treated equally. We are working with the author and we'll continue to work with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to testify in support of the author's bill? Hearing and seeing none. Any members of the public that would like to come and testify in opposition of the author's bill? We'll need to make some room, Senator, up at the dais, it looks like. Please state your name and who you represent, please.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Josh Pane on behalf of the California Bus Association. Want to first reach out and give our heartfelt condolences to the family. We have members that have both yellow school buses, home to school trip, which was the problem here. And we have members that have actual motor coaches, non-yellow school buses that do a variety of trips. So that's what I'd like to focus my remarks on. And then I'll introduce you to the former president of the California Bus Association. We appreciate the chairman's efforts to focus the bill. We appreciate your consultants' efforts on the proposed amendments that would focus it on the types of vehicles that you have where this individual lost his life. Also on that amendment that's in your analysis, we'd like you to look at it because it really focuses on the ability of a non-yellow school bus, a bus that may go to the state capitol with children or to Disneyland, a modern charter coach. We'd like you to focus on that because that doesn't have school children on it every day. We have a variety of uses for those buses. So on the yellow school bus side, on the special education school bus side, we support that provision, but we'd like, as the committee has written this amendment, this very specific amendment to say two things. One, if on a school pupil activity bus, which is this type of charter coach that you all are familiar with, does not exclusively transport pupils. And two, when a school pupil activity bus is used to transport pupils, the pupils are accompanied by a chaperone designated by the Office of Education or the school district. We think in that case, where it's not a home-to-school type trip, but it's a school to Sutter's Fort, or it's a trip to Disneyland, or it's a trip to the athletic competition, that in that case, with a chaperone on board and only with the chaperone on board, that those types of buses would not need this alarm system that the driver would have to go to the back of the bus. These coaches are very complex. We have one manufacturer, MCI, has estimated $7,000 per reprogramming hardware installation on a variety of their coaches. And it's not so much the $7,000 per coach or the $88.2 million that we estimate with the 12,000 plus buses. It really means to us the simple fact that if my child is on a bus of this nature, a charter coach, that I would want a chaperone to make sure he or she gets off the bus and gets back on the bus when they go to an event and when they come back from an event. So that's kind of summarizes for you. It's an expensive venture to reprogram each of these multiplex computer systems, which are each different on each of the coaches. This system that Senator Mendoza is proposing has been exclusively used on school buses. You can look on their website. It's very focused on school buses. So we're supporting that provision, but on this side, we'd urge the committee consultants' amendments that are before you. And that only means that on a non-yellow school bus, a motor coach that has a very complex mechanical and electrical system, that we focus on if there's a chaperone on board, you won't need to retrofit that coach. So we support the Senator what he's doing on the yellow school bus side. And now I'll introduce Dan Eisentrager, President of the California School Bus Association.
Vice President of Coach USA and Megabus in the Western region. I've been the past president of California Bus Association, and I'm here representing them as well. I work within the legislative committee and have worked on this bill with the with the assemblyman and with Josh. On behalf of the California Bus Association, a statewide organization which promotes professionalism, safety, and integrity of the motor coach industry, we must oppose Senate Bill 1072 as written. While the CBA supports the requirements of having a child safety alarm system in place on all yellow school buses, which are home to school primarily, we must oppose the requirement of our motor coaches used as school pupil activity buses. I'd like to also interject that I have an autistic grandchild. He rides a yellow school bus to school every day. And driver Bill from Elk Grove Unified School District gets him there, and he gets back every day. And I know it's a big concern of the Lee family and of this bill, but I do know that in my heart that he is taken care of very well. Operators who perform SPAB trips for school districts have very strict rules that we follow. There are always controls in place so passengers are not left behind on the coaches because there's an adult chaperone always required on the bus. SPAB trips are unique and completely different from the home-to-school yellow bus trips. There is always an adult chaperone and parent chaperoning on SPAB trips that count the students on and off, and they have a list that they have to keep track of. The California Department of Education, who wrote the SPAB training to train our SPAB trainers and train our drivers, is very specific about the driver and chaperone making these numerous checks and balances. All SPAB trips have a chaperone, teacher, coach, or authorized parent on the bus. The teacher, coach, authorized parent, or chaperone has that list, and they must keep it current. The driver and chaperone count the students onto the coach and off the coach. Each teacher has a file with permission slips as well that the parent must sign to allow the student to go on the trip. The members of the California Bus Association have intercity coaches which are far more complex than a school bus that may have multiplex systems used, and we use them in different situations on different days, not necessarily just for a SPAB trip. We can be on a transfer 1 hour, we can be on a SPAB trip in midday, or we can do a different type of charter in the evening. We accept the consultant's suggestions on the amendment and ask for the amendment be approved. Thank you very much.
Next witness, please state your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Louis Hotard. I'm Director of Technical Service for ABC Bus Companies, and ABC is the sole distributor for the Von Hood motor coaches in the U.S. My comments are more geared toward the implementation of the system in a motor coach. In this manual, where it talks about installing this system, it's developed for a single-use vehicle like a school bus. In a motor coach, we have a restroom in the back, we have parcel racks in the bus, in the coach, we have doors on parcel racks. So there's a lot of other places that kids could hide or sneak into, and just having a simple switch in the back in the rear of the bus might not necessarily provide the security that you're looking for in a motor coach as it does in a school bus. So it is more complex, and I don't know if you get the result you want if this was installed like it is now in a motor coach as you would in a school bus. That's the basic of my comments as far as the difference in the two types of vehicles.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to testify in opposition to the author's bill? Seeing none, any questions of the committee of the author? Mr. Medina?
First, I'd like to thank the author. Coming out of education like the author, being a former teacher, and especially as a former kindergarten teacher, where I supervised 36 students, my kindergartners, getting on the bus every day after class. It's a lot of kids, 36, and had events, of my own kindergartners getting on the wrong bus, and as kindergartners, they didn't know they were on the wrong bus, and so we rely on the school bus drivers, to know their kids, but it is difficult, when you have so many kids on a school bus, to keep track of all of them. I went afterwards to high school, where I supervised field trips like the ones that you talked about, and took 2 bus full of high school kids to Six Flags Magic Mountains, as many seniors went this year for graduation. And again, my fear was leaving a student behind, and this was a high school student, that I would come back to school with one less student. So then I took. And that was always my biggest fear, very, very well-founded fear. So I'm very much thankful for the bill proposed by Senator Mendoza, and I do have some questions about the amendments, but let me leave it at that for right now.
Any other members of the committee have questions? Who? Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I just wanted to thank the Lee family for your very difficult and compelling testimony. And I did not know about this incident. And the alarm should not be the standard of care. It should be a double check. Just like if you have kids and you're at a house with a pool, the fact that there's a lock on the door, you don't say, oh, the door's locked, so I'm good. I can just pay attention to the alarm, pay attention to the door. There still needs to be diligence. We as a body can always keep looking for that and how we do that. But thank you for being here today. And I move the bill for passage.
I think Ms. Brown and then Ms. Kim.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say and give condolences. I remember the story as it came through the newspaper. And it's very, very sad that you lost your child. I'd like to ask the question to Mr. Mendoza about the amendments, though. I hadn't heard that you weren't taking them, or hadn't heard you respond. So maybe you could respond to those amendments.
We received an email with the amendments from the chair's office earlier today, and I know we got some language in the last week, and seeing the amendments, it really makes it unworkable for what we're trying to accomplish. You got to keep in mind that the reason we're here was because there was human error. Part of their job description for every driver is to go to the back of the bus and do this exact thing, to double check. The private bus company, they have the same mandate when they're driving with kids, and yet year after year, incident after incident, we have 82 incidents of private charter buses leaving kids on the bus. We have stories, even in Florida. There was one that came out just a few minutes ago. They left the kid on the bus. The bus took off. They had to chase down the bus, driving down the street to bring the kid back. We hear about this all the time. These bus drivers are trained to do that, go to the back but they don't. Same thing with the other school bus. This incident occurred from a third-party school bus company. Small districts can't afford to have their own bus system. So they all pull their money, their resources together, and they contract and they have their own bus line in that way. And this is what happened here. So the cost of these items, here it is. This is the button that will go in the back. This is the device here. There's no way this costs $7,000 to install. It just costs $150. Real simple. This is the most basic one you can get. You get more advanced where the Wi-Fi and all kinds of stuff, and use cards to just scan and touch it instead of pressing the button. You could do that too. It's real simple. Very inexpensive. LAUSD, the largest school district in California and second in the nation, they all have it on their buses. It's easy to do. I have a list here of about 8 companies right now, 8 private charter companies already do this without having to be told. I understand that our friends in the charter company don't want to do this. Our chaperones, they're volunteers. They're parents. They're not trained. They're just there to accompany. Last time we heard stories about the student list of students that was stapled in the wrong place. And when they flipped it over, the staple was covering the name. And it happened that kid fell asleep in the bus. And they didn't know. They thought it was all clear. Until they were leaving home, and the one parent stood there like, where's my kid? Oh, so they went back to the bus, and guess what? He was asleep in the back. Not because human error again. Again, if people were to do their job, and just like you mentioned earlier, we shouldn't be doing this. There's no reason why I should be standing here telling you we need to install this just to avoid another death. That's just crazy. When they should just be doing their job both on the public school system buses and the private, because if they're willing to contract out with our school districts saying, yes, I want public monies, yes, I want to do the job, I want to transport your kids to school games, whatever, they should be responsible enough to provide this for their drivers, because their drivers are doing the same human errors that caused this incident last year. Really, we should. It's not a big undertaking. It's not. Other states do it. I have a whole list. I have a few states here: Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Wisconsin. Many of them have passed the same similar law requiring this to make sure their kids are safe. That's why it's kind of hard to. It's not workable.